sitting on top of your shoulders is the most advanced organ in the known universe. 83,000 processes can only mimic 1% of what your brain can do. The human brain consists of about 200 billion nerve cells that are linked together by trillions of synapses, each of which contains about 1,000 different switches that route electrical impulses. Even then, your brain is still susceptible to error. Often optical illusions can trick the brain into seeing something that isn't there or is moving that isn't moving. The only thing common about our senses is that they fail consistently. So, humans have developed advanced technology to assist with human understanding and experimentation of the universe. These instruments help people to see the unseeable, to measure imperceptible angles and motions that the naked eye could never make. So why is it today that we have a group of people claiming to know more about the universe by only using their naked eye observations? Who knows? But flat earthers claim too. These ill-informed buffoons represent a growing population of attention-seeking whores who only want to troll the internet into believing in something that is routinely debunked on just about every YouTube channel ever made. Look at this and ask yourself if this is the behavior of an honest individual looking for the truth.
I'm not here to have a debate, Nathan, because a debate with you isn't possible because you don't understand anything. So you're not gonna get anything from a debate. I'm here to literally show everyone how stupid you are.
Or a troll looking for YouTube fame. If your only response is to make idiotic hand gestures, silly faces, or smiling, like you're in a Bee Gees music video.
Now, I noticed a tendency for this program to get rather silly. Now, I do my best to keep things moving along, but I'm not having things getting silly.
Well, then it's safe to say you're a troll only looking to make a name for yourself by acting like an idiot. However, when you start a debunking channel on YouTube, you are immediately put on a crash course with these pros. So let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to another riveting episode of The Devil's in the Details. Today we will launch into the ever-growing world of flat earth. Because the only way to get YouTube views is to cover this topic. I hate to even discuss this because I believe 90% of flat earthers are just trolling. But my channel is about as popular as Kent Hovind's Grindr profile. Instead of tackling it as a whole, we will look at one claim at a time. Today's claim being the existence of gravity. These people believe that there is no actual way to demonstrate or test gravity, and that the effects of gravity can be explained with density. Take a look.
No, Neil. That's called density.
Whatever the fuck that was supposed to prove, this idea of density only creates more problems than it solves. Surely the sun and moon are more dense than the air below it and haven't plummeted to the earth. What force is suspending them, and how can we test this hypothesis? Or how about the earth? It must be more dense than the empty space below it. Some say the earth is suspended on a firmament. So, how can you prove this? What is supporting the firmament? Nothing, because it has already been debunked. Or is the earth in a constant state of falling through space? Or are there rockets attached to the flat earth? And flat earthers might be the most dense of all of us, so shouldn't they fall into the center of the earth? Or form a black hole crushing us all with their stupendous density? Flat earthers believe that the sun and moon orbit above the earth like this. So what force is moving them? How can this be proven? What studies have been done that demonstrate your hypothesis? How can it be falsified? Who knows? Gravity is a very tricky subject and something humans still don't fully understand. That does not mean it's not real. Humans have measured the gravitational constant and use it to make predictions. Theories are tested and gauged by the predictive powers, and many people have used them to make predictions accurately. In 1846, astronomers discovered Neptune based on predictions made by Leverrier and Adams. By using Newton's laws, Leverrier and Adams were able to calculate the perturbation of Uranus, which they believed were being caused by an unidentified planet. They were then able to predict where the planet would be based on the perturbations of Uranus. Astronomers soon after using those calculations found Neptune, almost exactly where Leverrier predicted it would be. This perfectly demonstrates the predictive power of Newton's theories. And this was all done before the existence of NASA to pay them to be shills. Now, if you could please explain how people are able to use fake information to make accurate predictions using maths and models that are all based on something that is incorrect. So what predictive capability can be demonstrated with flat Earth math and models? None, because they don't have either. They also cast off real experiments such as the Cavendish experiment with no real reasoning, other than stating it's too sensitive of a process and too difficult to reproduce, even though it is reproduced and kits can be purchased by anyone online. The effects of gravity were also observed by Sir Arthur Eddington in 1919 by the warping of light around Earth's sun as predicted by Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. This experiment can also be replicated by anyone. The next total solar eclipse is set to take place on April 8, 2024. That gives plenty of time to prepare and plan. Eddington's experiment took photographs of the location of stars before and during the eclipse. The incoming light from those stars were misplaced by the gravity from the sun. The photographs demonstrated the effects gravity has on light. The fact is a force acted on the incoming light. That force is called gravity. So what experiments have these people proposed? Some state that the only way to prove gravity would be to build a massive lead ball and send it to space and see if it attracts anything.
Take a giant lead ball, whatever it is, the biggest object of the most mass that you could possibly imagine, and take a small object and make that small object go towards the larger object by virtue of its mass alone.
You can't make this stuff up. Not realizing that this experiment would be impossible, as to create something large enough to fulfill this absurd proposal would require more material than is possible on planet Earth. It would also be impossible to deliver this object into space deep enough to not be interfered with by the gravity of the sun or other celestial bodies. Regardless, we do not need to build any such object, because the universe was kind enough to do it for us. Jupiter is a perfect example of this and can be viewed by anyone. Galileo was possibly the first person to view objects rotating around a celestial body. Looking through a telescope, he viewed 4 objects around Jupiter. He noticed these objects did not stay in the same location, so he plotted these objects over months, and soon after identified them as moons. The fact they could be seen one night and not the next meant they were going behind Jupiter and clear evidence of an orbit. The motion is exactly what an observer would see looking at the Earth and how its moon orbits it. He named these objects Io, Ganymede, Callisto, and Europa after Zeus's lovers. The fact of the matter is there are objects orbiting Jupiter. In order for these objects to orbit requires a force. Gravity is the name humans have given this force. Today this can be done by anyone with a telescope. So unless you think telescopes are part of the conspiracy, you've got a problem. If you are someone who thinks telescopes are part of the conspiracy, here is a project you can do. Make your own. A Newtonian telescope works by reflecting incoming light from a mirror onto another mirror at its focal point and then viewed through an eyepiece which can bring that light into focus. The first thing you will need is a large cylinder to block light and house all the parts. This must be solid without holes, aside from those on the ends. Then it must be prepped. The inside must be a dark color to not reflect any light. A dark matted black is best. Next you will need a concave reflecting surface. It must be concave to establish a focal point for the incoming light. Concave mirrors are used because they reflect incoming light into a focal point, much like burning ants with a magnifying glass. Something flat earthers are very familiar with. Next you will need to calculate the focal length of the primary mirror. This will tell you the distance you need to place your secondary mirror. Typically, this is done with that hard math stuff you people avoid, but can be done by placing a sheet of paper on the floor. Hold the primary mirror above the paper until the reflected light forms a fine point on the paper. Once you have found the finest point the mirror can achieve, carefully measure that distance. This is called the focal length, and is very important to get right as any mismeasurements can greatly reduce the telescope's power. Attach your primary mirror at one end of your cylinder and ensure light cannot get through from that end. Next you will need a secondary mirror. This should be much smaller than the primary and flat, and its job is to reflect the incoming light from the primary mirror into the eyepiece. This must be mounted inside the cylinder at the exact focal point and is typically mounted at a 50-degree angle. The mount is referred to as the spider. Again, this is very important to get right. Once both mirrors are mounted, you must attach the eyepiece. You may notice inside the cylinder light is reflecting at an exact point. This is where your eyepiece should go. Drill a hole in your cylinder for the eyepiece at this spot. Eyepieces can be purchased at hobby stores or online. There are many different sizes to choose from, but for most a 10mm will do fine. You can also purchase a barload lens to increase scope's magnification. Then mount your telescope. You can use your tripod you used to mount your P900 on, instead of using it to film boats and making up ad hoc excuses as to why they disappear from bottom up. You can do some real observations and recordings of celestial bodies and gravity in action. Now that you've constructed and mounted your scope, identify any part of this process that would make this device capable of faking orbits of celestial bodies. Or you can locate Jupiter and observe its moon's orbits. You can download a sky map or look up the information on stargazing websites to find where it will be located that night. Jupiter is brightest in the sky throughout April and June. If you think that all these methods are in on the conspiracy, you could just start looking at random objects and hope you eventually land on Jupiter. Once you find it, begin to plot the objects orbiting it. Once you've plotted them and established that they're orbiting Jupiter, come up with an ad hoc excuse, or maybe Jupiter is also in on the conspiracy. But in reality, these objects perfectly demonstrate the existence of gravity, and anyone whose beliefs are grounded in reality can understand this. Or you can continue to live in a delusional fantasy land. Join us next time and like and subscribe. Or don't. Until next time, hail Sagan.